In July 2010, a tragedy occurred in the Republic of Bashkortostan that shocked the entire community. The emergency response team of the Regional Ministry of Emergency Situations received a report of a fire several kilometers away from Ufa, the capital of Bashkortostan. A forest was burning. The rescuers immediately set out for the indicated area, confident that the fire was caused by the drought, responsible for hundreds of fires across Russia that summer. However, this time natural disasters had nothing to do with it. While extinguishing the fire, the rescuers discovered a Lexus hidden among the scorched trees, charred by the flames. It was clear that the once luxurious car had become the ignition point. Someone had driven it there, set it on fire, and fled. But why would someone want to get rid of such an expensive car in such a strange way? The car had clearly been in an accident before it burned. Perhaps someone had killed a person and decided to destroy the evidence. The rescuers reported the strange find to the police. However, before the investigators arrived, it was discovered that there had been no serious accidents involving a Lexus in the Ufa district recently. It was possible that the driver had hit a pedestrian without witnesses and the car had been stolen. Or perhaps the owner's children had taken the car for a joyride and, when trouble occurred, decided it was better for their parents to think the car had been stolen. Only the car's owner could answer these questions, but identifying him was not difficult. The arsonist had carefully removed the license plates, but overlooked the fact that the necessary information could be obtained by examining the engine. The car's owner turned out to be 30-year-old Emil Shaganov, an engineer from Ufa who worked for the company Energon. The car was not reported as stolen, but the investigators soon discovered that Emil himself was missing. He had disappeared a week earlier, and his mother had reported it to the police. She said Emil had gone swimming with friends and never returned. It happened on a Friday after work. When her son didn't come home, his mother wasn't immediately worried. After all, it was summer, and he was an adult. However, when he didn't show up at the beginning of the work week and never called, she realized something serious might have happened. Her concern was considered justified by the local police. After Emil's burned car was found, the city's investigative department opened a criminal case regarding his disappearance. A murder might have been committed, but who could have killed the engineer? The investigation began considering various theories. One of the first was the possibility of a robbery. Such crimes were not uncommon at the time. 3 years earlier, Ufa had been shaken by the brutal murder of a young couple. 2 criminals killed them to steal their Honda Accord, which they planned to sell to fund a luxurious lifestyle. There was also a similar story with a realtor from Tatarstan who disappeared after going to finalize a deal. Her Infiniti was later found burned in the woods. The prime suspect was the seller of a rural house she had met with. He had strangled the woman, buried her body in his yard, and taken her car for a joyride. However, he lost control on the highway, crashed into a ditch, and abandoned the car, returning home by hitchhiking. At first glance, Emil Shaganov seemed like a modest and unremarkable person, a typical engineer. However, investigators were intrigued by how he had acquired such an expensive car, which far exceeded his official salary. It turned out that Emil had an additional source of income unrelated to his main job. He was a passionate football fan and knew the rosters of all the European teams by heart. Over time, his love for football grew into a hobby, participating in sports betting. Thanks to his analysis of matches and his ability to predict outcomes, Emil became quite skilled at it, regularly winning significant sums. One of these large wins allowed him to fulfill his long-held dream and purchase the prestigious Lexus. The investigators began looking into Emil's relationships with bookmakers. Perhaps he had won big again, and someone decided it was easier to eliminate the lucky man than to pay him the money. Or maybe he had received his winnings, but someone then decided to take the money back by staging a robbery. Another theory was that Emil might have lent money or borrowed heavily in an attempt to win back losses. However, the financial version quickly took a back seat. The investigators learned that Emil had another passion that could have played a fatal role in his life. Until recently, Emil had been married, but his marriage lasted about 4 years and ended due to differences in character. Emil loved his young son very much, but envisioned a different kind of life partner, someone younger whom he could mold to his liking. Emil had grown up in a family where he was raised by his grandmother and mother, as his father had died when he was still a boy. Such men often choose women who guide them, but Emil considered himself old-fashioned and was raised on books that instilled a sense of honor and duty. After the divorce, Emil decided that he would only be happy with a girl for whom he would be the first and only. According to him, Emil met such a girl shortly before his disappearance. Emil confided to his friend Igor that he had met the girl of his dreams and would soon introduce her to his friends and family. However, upon learning about this, Igor did not feel as happy for his friend as he felt concerned. The detectives found out that this new girl in Emil's life was 15-year-old Karina Kuiko, a 9th grade student. They had met online, where Karina went by the nickname Cherry Lady. They had been corresponding for several weeks before finally meeting. Emil was captivated by the young, fragile girl, seeing in her the ideal he had always dreamed of. Karina was a troubled teenager. She was growing up without a father, and her mother struggled to manage her daughter's upbringing. The girl had problems at school and couldn't get along with her classmates and teachers. The relationship between Emil and Karina developed rapidly. He began helping her, learned about her school problems, and even rented an apartment for her in Ufa, hoping she could start her studies anew there. However, the girl started throwing endless parties at the apartment with dubious friends. This led to quarrels between Emil and Karina. After the rescuers found the burned car and discovered it belonged to the missing Emil Shaganov, finding the criminals became a top priority. Special investigative teams were created to interview witnesses and establish Emil's circle of contacts. Analyzing phone calls and messages played a crucial role in determining who Emil had interacted with in the days leading up to his disappearance. Karina Kuiko quickly became a suspect, as it turned out she was one of the last people to see Emil before his disappearance. She was initially called in for questioning as a witness. During the first interrogations, Karina remained calm, claiming she had no idea what could have happened to Emil. However, her behavior, along with inconsistencies in her statements, raised suspicions among the investigators. They began checking her connections and acquaintances, monitoring her phone, and tracking her movements. Soon it was revealed that she was communicating with people with criminal backgrounds, discussing how to dispose of evidence, and asking them to destroy her phone. This information led the investigation to obtain a warrant for her arrest. After Karina was detained, the investigators conducted a more rigorous interrogation. Karina became extremely nervous, denied everything, and claimed she didn't know where Emil had disappeared. At the same time, her friends, 22-year-old Ruslan Abyasov, 19-year-old Nikolai Pankov, and 16-year-old Danil Makunin, Karina's classmate, were being interrogated in neighboring rooms. What the investigators heard shocked them to the core. Ruslan Abyasov confessed. On Friday evening, Karina invited her boyfriend Emil to a country house to introduce him to her friends, Ruslan, Nikolai, and Danil. They ate, drank, and had a good time. At some point, Emil started feeling unwell and dizzy. Karina told Emil that he might have had too much to drink and suggested he go to one of the rooms to rest. Emil went upstairs, entered a room, and collapsed onto the bed. A while later, Ruslan, Nikolai, and Danil entered the room. Without saying a word, they began savagely beating the sleeping Emil with a shovel and a frying pan. To their surprise, Emil regained consciousness from the brutal blows and began to resist. Then Danil Makunin, Karina's 16-year-old friend, grabbed a sledgehammer and struck Emil several times in the head. Emil lost consciousness, and they assumed he was dead. They put his body in the trunk of the same Lexus and drove it to the forest, intending to bury it. Ruslan then told the investigators something that horrified even the most experienced officers. When they began preparing to bury him, Emil unexpectedly regained consciousness. At that moment, his beloved Karina stepped out of the car and ordered her friends to cut off his head. Using an axe, they beheaded him and arranged a photo shoot with the victim's head before burying it. The killers took the decapitated corpse to another location and buried it as well. The drunken group drove around in the foreign car until morning, eventually crashing it after losing control. They then burned the car, which they had initially planned to sell, and fled the scene. Nikolai Pankov and Danil Makunin confirmed Ruslan's account, adding that they had helped dismember the body. The investigation established that Karina was not just a random acquaintance of Emil's, but had deliberately used her relationship with him to carry out a criminal plan. Together with Ruslan Abyasov, Nikolai Pankov, and Danil Makunin, she devised a scheme to murder Emil, intending to take his money and property. Karina Kuiko, despite her young age, was recognized as the main instigator of the crime and was sentenced to 12 years in a juvenile correctional facility. Danil Makunin, considering his age, also received 12 years in a correctional facility. Ruslan Abyasov and Nikolai Pankov were sentenced to 18 and 12 years in prison, respectively. This brutal murder shocked the public, and the investigation became one of the most high-profile cases in the region. The story of Emil Shaganov and his killers serves as a reminder of how easily one can become a victim of trust, and how far people are willing to go in pursuit of easy money. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any new videos. Take care of yourself and your loved ones.